Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Simon of Savage Reads, and today, as I continue to wrap up 2017 before we get into a new year, which I'm very, very excited about, I am going to be going through my favourite books of 2017. But because of the Costa judging that I did this year and the fact that our category winners aren't announced until next January, I'm not going to talk about any of those books in any order of preference because I don't want to give anything away, etc. And so I'm not. Instead, I'm breaking it down to different groups of books that I thought you'd like and books that I've really, most importantly, books that I've really enjoyed that I therefore will think you will like. I hope you'll like. We'll see. If you read them, let me know. But I thought I would start off with thrillers today. Actually, I say start off with thrillers. Yesterday I did do a video on the top 5 authors that I've discovered that are new to me this year that I would really, really like to read in 2018 and head back to some of their back catalogue because I want to do more back catalogue in 2018, but I'll talk about that more in 2018. So, thriller-wise, first up we have a book that I think got a bit of an unfair bashing this year because its predecessor was so successful, and that is Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. Now, I really, really enjoyed The Girl on the Train a lot. I loved what it said, well, not what it said about women, but it was saying about how society thinks women should fit into certain pigeonholes, as well as it being a really, really good mystery. And Into the Water, I thought, was another great mystery, which is talking about, without giving anything away, it's kind of talking about, I don't know if I want to say, well, on one hand it's talking about a woman called Nell who is found dead in what is known as the drowning pool in a small northern town. This is where supposedly they drowned witches previously, and her sister Jules goes back to her hometown to sort out what's happened, and then as it goes on it looks like it's not actually Nell's, Nell hasn't committed suicide. It looks like actually it could be an act of foul play or murder. And then as it goes on, could actually more people have not accidentally died or committed suicide there, but actually been killed. So that's one level of the book. But then on the other level of the book, it's also very much about the secrets that lie within this small town. It's about all these kind of twitching of neck curtains, but actually what's going on behind those neck curtains. There's a lot of voices in it, but I actually didn't mind that. I really like books that kind of, you feel like you are part of the village and you become part of its, not folklore exactly, but part of its local gossip, I suppose, is more appropriate, as well as hints and little bits of folklore. I know a lot of people have said, oh, this is Paula Hawkins writing a witchy book. It's not. It's still very much a murder mystery, and I loved the detective. I'm hoping that she'll make appearances in future books, fingers crossed. But yeah, it's a really, really good, I was gripped by this. I raced through it. I loved the twists and turns. I loved the characters. I loved trying to work out who was friend and who was foe. I loved the fact that Paula really looks at outsiders, which I suppose is what most fiction looks at in many ways. But yeah, I really, 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 really enjoyed it. So I would highly, highly, highly recommend Into the Water by Paula Hawkins. And I'm very good because there is one theme that runs through the book that I could mention, but I've actually decided not to because it would give a big bit away. But if you know what I mean, talk to me about it. Maybe not in the comments. I'll see. All these books will be linked in the description box down below though. Next up is a book that I haven't talked about on this channel as much as I should have. I think I mentioned it in Crime Time with Pip, and that is 6 Stories by Matt Wazlowski. And this is a tale of, well, it's like if you loved Serial, the podcast, the first series. The second one wasn't so great, but if you like the first series, then you'll love this because this book is told as if it's a podcast, which is by this guy called Scott King, who's kind of, I nearly said the Scott King because he's kind of the illustrious Scott King, but also the mysterious Scott King because nobody really knows who Scott King is. I've said Scott King too many times, I said Tim too many times yesterday, and I'm saying Scott King too many times today. What it also looks back at is a crime that happened in 1997 when a young man called Tom was found dead on a weekend away. And what Scott King goes and does is kind of look at this cold case that kind of was put away and was decided to be, well, was certified an unsolved crime, and kind of go back to the people who were there, the other kids who are on that holiday who are now, all these years later, grown-ups, and find out just what went on. You get properly drawn into it. It's very gripping. If you love podcasts, I didn't think reading a podcast book would work. It's not a podcast, by the way, it is just a book. But you do feel like when you're reading it, you are listening to a podcast. It's a really, really strange but brilliant experience. And I love the fact that the cover is a reflection of the water, but also looks like sound waves. Also, it's set in the north of England, and as I've mentioned many a time before, actually Into the Water by Paula Hawkins was as well. I really like books set in the north because I'm from the north, and they just chime with me in that way that I really, really enjoy. So I definitely recommend this. Then a book that some people might not say is a mystery, but I found it quite a thriller and quite a twisty-turny book and absolutely loved it, and I think lots more people should read it, and that is allegedly by Tiffany D. Jackson. And I don't know why Tiffany L. Jackson came from, Tiffany D. Jackson. And this is about a young woman called Mary who has been in prison since she was a very young girl, and now is moving into she's just moved into a home for young women who have difficult backgrounds. And she was in prison allegedly for killing her little sister. And it looks at how that may or may not have happened, how the system has or hasn't helped her, and what has or hasn't happened in her past and what was really going on. What Tiffany D. Jackson does brilliantly with this is you see everything through Mary's eyes, and she's kind of, there's confusion because she was so young, but also she looks at things in a slightly naive way, but also with, rightly so, a chip on her shoulder about what situation she's ended up in. But you're also reading it as an adult trying to spot what's really, really going on behind all of this at the same time. So you're trying to find out just what happened, and also it's about what is going to happen to Mary. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. I also think if you liked Kit DeWall's My Name is Leon, then you will really, really enjoy this. It's not the same kind of book at all, but actually the voice and this displaced young character is very, very similar, and kind of there was something that chimed. I've done chime too many times. It was tone, like I said, now it's chime. I've obviously stuck on certain repeat with musical words at the moment. But it really, really chimes with that voice, and I loved My Name is Leon, and I absolutely loved Allegedly. So do pick this up. Then, a bit of an old crime classic now, as we're heading to Patricia Highsmith's This Sweet Sickness. Now, I had read Deep Water by Patricia Highsmith last year, as well as Carol. I didn't love Carol as much as I wanted to. I liked the film quite a lot, but I didn't like the book as much, which is unusual to say that. There's something that wasn't quite right with me. I think it was trying to be a thriller when actually it's a romance, and so I could see how she was interweaving the two. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about This Sweet Sickness, which is, after reading Deep Water and being completely and utterly hooked by Patricia Highsmith writing about, as she called them, her little psychopaths, I wanted to read more, but I didn't want to go for the obvious ones like The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I kind of still have the film in my head of, and Marieke Hardy of what used to be the ABC Book Club, or the First Tuesday Book Club, which I absolutely loved. And Marieke Hardy is a sort of icon for me in many ways. She possibly may know it, and possibly may have taken out a warrant so that I don't go anywhere near Australia. But she recommended this as one of the, they do this, or they used to do this section where they talk about a book they've read recently and they absolutely loved. Or did they actually do the whole book? I can't remember. I think it was on a section of books they loved. And she mentioned this, and this is about a man called David who believes that the love of his life, Annabelle, is in the marriage with the wrong man and is now indeed having that man's child. And really, Annabelle wants to be married to him. It's fascinating how this obsession and sort of falsehood of stories that he tells himself, that he so believes, leads him to doing something very, very stupid, nay, murderous indeed. And yet somehow, well, I won't give anything away. Suffice to say, it'll make you question your morals a little bit, which is what I really like that she does, and I really, really, really enjoyed this. I think Patricia Highsmith is deserving of a much bigger resurgence than she's had, for me personally. Then a book that came out this year that I have talked quite a lot about, and that is See What I've Done by Sarah Schmidt. I loved this. Again, this is not your stereotypical thriller. In fact, in some ways, many people would say it's more a historical novel, which I think it is. But because it's about the true story of Lizzie Borden and whether she did or did not take an axe to her father and stepmother's heads and kill them, kind of makes it, for me, part of, not true crime, obviously. Well, it is true crime, but it's fictionalised true crime. That's very complicated, isn't it? Is that a subgenre that we don't even know about, that we should know about, and actually would be a really good genre? So, yeah, I loved this because if I'd done a top 10 Gothic novels of the year, this would be on there, but there's only so many top however many books of the year that you can do, as I'm discovering. And so I wanted to mention this one in this section particularly because I do think if you think you don't like crime books, or on the flip side, if you really, really love crime books and thrillers and you don't think you like literary fiction, this sits firmly in the middle in this kind of glorious, gothic, dark, gruesome, gritty, very unusually narrated when it's Lizzie, because it isn't Lizzie that narrates it the whole way through, but just quirky book that I really, really, really recommend. I was transfixed by it, and it's got kind of a very dark sense of humour in parts, which I really, really enjoyed. And also I love it because it's brought Sarah Schmidt into my life, who's become one of my delightful friends this year, which doesn't mean I'm biased because I liked the book before I met her, so there. But I really, 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 really rate that book, and I mentioned it a few times. And then my ultimate thriller this year may surprise some of you. It took me by surprise when I read it. I was initially recommended this by Michael Kindness, who used to host Books on the Nightstand at one of my favourite podcasts, which is now defunct. It's like If I Love Everything, it becomes defunct. The First Tuesday Book Club, now defunct. Now we've got Books on the Nightstand, which also became defunct. It's not fair. It's like I've got some evil curse. Anyway, he recommended this, and it is Bonfire by Kristen Ritter. Now, if you don't know who Kristen Ritter is, you may be living under a rock, but I didn't realise who it was until I saw the back of the book, and it is Jessica Jones, which made me instantly dubious, and my hackles rise a little bit, which it shouldn't, because if somebody wants to write a book and can write, they should write a book. And Kristen Ritter has written a brilliant thriller, which is all about a woman called Abby who goes back to her hometown where people believe somebody, well, this big corporation nearby is poisoning the water and it's making people sick, which leads her back to her childhood when one of her sort of, I don't want to say friend or enemy, frenemy I suppose is the term, Casey, vanished and claimed that she had been sick leading up to her disappearance. But where did she go, why did she go, and what really happened to Casey? Both of these questions of what's going on now and what happened then run through the whole of the book, and I can only describe it as like Erin Brockovich meets Mean Girls but in a really gritty, twisty thriller. So if that's your kind of bag, you'll absolutely love this, I promise. So that is my favourite thriller of this year. As I mentioned, they will all be linked down below. I'll hold them all up now because I always like to do that because it just feels nice to have them as a collective unit. I'm trying to speak as much as I can while I pick them all up. So those, as I said, are my thrillers of the year. I will link them all in the description box down below if you want to go and find out more. If you've read any of them, do let me know your thoughts. If you've read anything else by any of the authors, please let me know. And if you've got any thrillers that you think I would really, 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 really love, please let me know those too, because I would like to read lots more in 2018. Very excited. I'm always excited about New Year's. So excited about New Year's. But that is it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow with another selection of top favourite books of 2017. I will speak to you all then. Bye.